Okay, so let's try and unpack this.
Where do we even start?
I know, right? We have this stack of papers here, and I mean, honestly, it feels less like a book and more like we've stumbled upon some kind of
Alien instruction manual.
exactly an
Hmm.
instruction manual for the human operating system. It's incredibly dense.
It is. It's provocative and, it challenges pretty much everything we assume about how the world works, how our minds work, and what we're even doing here.
We are diving deep into A Course in Miracles,
Huh.
or ACM for short. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. I can almost hear the collective eye roll through the
Oh,
headphones.
yeah.
Miracles.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Are we talking about, like, parting the Red Sea here? Are we going to turn water into wine?
And to be fair, if you just glance at the cover or, the terminology, you might think that it uses all this heavy traditional Christian language.
Totally. God, sin, atonement, Christ.
Mhm.
It looks like some dusty old theology textbook.
It really does.
But then you start reading the source material we have today, and you realize, hang on a second. These words do not mean what I think they mean.
Not at all.
It feels like someone took the dictionary, ripped out all the pages, and just wrote entirely new definitions in the margins.
That's a perfect way to put it. It's fundamentally a psychological curriculum. It uses religious language, yes, but the application is all about mental mechanics.
So it's about the mind.
Completely. It's designed to dismantle your current thought system, which, let's be honest, is usually based on fear and survival, and replace it with one based on what the Course calls true perception.
And what's so fascinating about this particular deep dive is the context of our source material. We aren't just reading the book in a vacuum.
No, not at all.
We're looking at a transcript from a reading club session, and it's led by a guy named Hoyang Lin.
Yeah.
But here's the kicker. He's not some monk meditating on a mountaintop.
No, he is not.
He's talking to business partners, like people involved in sales, team building. He keeps referencing things like Nu Skin.
Which is a direct sales or network marketing environment. And that context is just brilliant.
Why do you say that?
Because usually when you hear about spiritual enlightenment, you picture someone totally detached from the world, right? Meditating in a cave.
Right, they've renounced all worldly possessions.
Exactly. You don't picture someone stressing about sales quotas or dealing with a difficult downline partner or, freaking out because a product launch failed.
That's so true. I love that because it grounds it. I mean, if a philosophy can't help me when I'm stuck in traffic or when my boss is yelling at me, then what good is it, really?
And that's the promise here. Lin is applying these huge, high-concept metaphysical ideas, like the nature of reality and illusion, directly to the stress of missing a business target.
Or the annoyance of a colleague who just isn't pulling their weight.
Exactly. It grounds all the woo-woo in the very real, very messy grit of daily life.
So our mission today is to strip away that intimidating layer. We want to understand the mechanics of the miracle as this course defines it. And spoiler alert, it's not about magic tricks.
No, it's about a fundamental 180-degree shift in how your brain processes reality.
A complete reversal of cause and effect, I think he said.
That's the one. It turns everything you thought you knew on its head.
Okay, so let's start with the core problem, the premise. The course opens with this really famous summary. I remember reading this for the first time, and my brain just tied itself in a knot. It says, "Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God."
It's poetic, for sure, but it's also a logical syllogism. It's the absolute foundation of the entire thought system. If you get this, you get everything.
But hold on. Let's play devil's advocate here, because to the average person, to me, that sounds frankly insane.
I get it.
Nothing unreal exists.
Yeah.
I am holding a coffee cup. It's hot, it's solid. If I drop it, it shatters. That feels very real. The mortgage you have to pay feels incredibly real.
It does, doesn't it?
Are you telling me that's all a hallucination?
In the context of the course, yes. But we have to be super careful with that word hallucination. It doesn't mean you aren't experiencing it. Your pain feels real. The cup feels solid. It just means it doesn't have the durability of truth, with a capital T.
Okay, so walk me through this, because my bank definitely thinks my mortgage has durability.
Well, the source material explains this by taking us way, way back to an origin story. And it's not the Garden of Eden with an apple and a snake. It's a metaphysical event.
Okay.
The idea is that we all originated from a single source. You can call it God, love, the universe, whatever word works for you. Yeah. And we were part of that oneness. There was no you and me. There was just us,
One big happy blob of energy. Got it.
essentially. But then we had what the Course calls a tiny, mad idea. Just a fleeting thought of separation, a thought that asked, what would it be like if I went off on my own? What if I could be special? What if I could be an individual?
So we wanted to go solo. We were the cosmic teenager wanting to leave home.
That's a great way to put it. We wanted to start our own startup outside the family business. But here's the metaphysical catch. To be an individual, you have to be separate from the whole.
Right.
And to be separate from the whole, which is the source of all love and abundance, you essentially have to cut yourself off from your own life support system. That act of separation created a massive psychological wound.
What kind of wound?
3 things, mainly fear, guilt, and a profound, deep-seated sense of lack.
Why those 3?
Well, if I'm suddenly separate from the source of everything, then I'm all alone. I'm vulnerable. I don't have enough. I have to fight you to get what I need because there's a limited supply. That's fear and lack. And the guilt comes from the deep unconscious memory that we're the ones who walked out in the first place.
And this is where the nightmare comes in, this world we're in.
Yes. The Course argues that this physical world we see, the stress, the competition, the bodies that get sick and die, the wars, the traffic jams, it's all a projection of that internal state of fear and guilt.
A projection.
We felt so guilty about separating and so terrified of the punishment we thought we deserved that we built this entire universe to hide in. It's a dream we are dreaming, to hide from the reality of what we did.
So the world is like a giant VR headset we put on to forget that we walked out on God.
That is a perfect analogy. Think about a VR headset. When you put it on and you're in a game, right? And a zombie lunges at you, your heart races. You duck, you scream, it feels solid, it feels like life or death.
Totally. Your body reacts as if it's real.
But if you take the headset off...
There's no zombie. It was just pixels and code.
Exactly. The Course is saying, you are wearing a headset. The unreal things, the fear, the pain, the sickness, the death, they are the game. They feel real because you're totally immersed in the simulation.
But they aren't real with a capital R.
Because they aren't eternal. Only the love that exists when you take the headset off is real. Hence the quote, nothing real can be threatened, love can't be threatened, nothing unreal exists. The zombie was never really there.
Okay, that is some heavy metaphysics. But let's ground this, because Hoi-Yang Lin does a fantastic job of taking this lofty separation idea and bringing it right into a sales meeting.
He does. He uses the analogy of self-sabotage in business, which is something we can all relate to.
Right. He paints this picture of a distributor, maybe someone working in Nu Skin. They have the products, they have the training, the market is there. Everything in so-called reality is lined up for them to succeed.
All the external pieces are in place, but they sit down to make a call to a potential client and they just freeze.
They freeze. A thought creeps into their head. I can't do this. I'm going to fail. They're going to laugh at me.
We've all been there. Imposter syndrome.
Big time.
Lin argues that this moment, that split second where you choose to believe the voice of doubt, is a micro version of the original separation from God.
How so? That feels like a big leap.
Well, think about it. In that moment, you are separating yourself from your own potential. You're separating yourself from the flow or the truth that you are perfectly capable. You are choosing to listen to the tiny, mad idea of fear instead of the truth of your own competence.
And what happens next?
You self-sabotage, you get weird and tense on the call, you don't make eye contact in the meeting, and guess what? The customer says no.
And then you say, see, I knew it. I knew I couldn't do it.
Exactly. You projected fear, and you literally created a nightmare scenario out of thin air. The failure wasn't inevitable. You manufactured it because you believed in the separation, the doubt, more than the connection to your own ability.
Wow. Okay. You severed your link to the source, in this case your own confidence, and created a little personal hell for yourself.
That's it. So in this context, the unreal thing, that's the failure you just created. The fear, the stress, the sense of lack, those are unreal because they are the products of a delusion. They feel real, just like a nightmare feels terrifying when you're in it, but they are completely unnecessary.
This brings us to another one of those loaded words that the text uses, which usually makes people run for the hills. Sin.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I grew up thinking sin meant breaking one of the 10 commandments, doing something bad and making God angry. It's all about crime and punishment. But the Course flips this too, doesn't it?
It completely reframes it. And this is absolutely crucial for anyone trying to understand this. In ASEAM and in Lin's explanation, sin is relabeled. It is not a moral crime. It is simply an error.
An error. Like a typo in an email.
Sort of. It's a mistaken perception. Or, as the Source beautifully puts it, it's just a lack of love.
A lack of love. Okay, like darkness is just a lack of light.
That's the perfect analogy. Think about a dark room. You don't attack the darkness, right? You don't try to shovel the darkness out with a bucket.
No, that would be insane.
Right. Darkness isn't a thing that exists on its own. It's just the absence of photons. You just turn on the light.
And the darkness is gone instantly.
The Source explains that sin is the same. It's that state of being cut off from the flow of love. When you're rude to a coworker, or you cheat on your taxes, or you hate yourself, that's not evil in some cosmic sense. It's just you acting out from a place where the lights are off. It's a call for love, not a reason for punishment.
That is a huge relief, honestly, because if it's just a mistake, it can be corrected. If it's a crime, I'm in trouble. I'm waiting for the judge and jury.
Exactly. A crime requires punishment. A mistake just requires correction. And that correction, that act of turning on the light, that is what A Course in Miracles calls a miracle.
Okay, let's pivot to the solution then. We're in this nightmare of separation. We're stressed out. We're fighting with our colleagues. We're worried about money. The Course offers the miracle as the way out. So is a miracle just waking up from the nightmare?
In a sense, yes, that's the ultimate goal. But let's be precise about what a single miracle is. The Source defines a miracle not as manipulating the physical world.
So no levitating or manifesting a Ferrari out of thin air.
Right, not like that. A miracle is defined as right perception.
Right perception.
In the original text that Lin is reading from, there's a term he mentions, Zhengzijun.
I remember seeing this. There was a note in our source material about a potential translation confusion. Yeah.
Exactly. In Chinese, the phrase Zhengzijun can sound a lot like the words for political view. But here, it's a Buddhist and spiritual term that means true vision or right view.
So we are definitely not talking about voting for the right candidate here.
No, definitely not. We are talking about a fundamental shift in how you choose to see the world. A miracle is simply the moment you choose to stop looking at a situation through the lens of fear, which the Course calls the ego.
The voice of separation.
Exactly. And instead, you start looking at it through the lens of love, which the Course calls the Spirit or the Holy Spirit.
So just changing my mind is the miracle. That feels a little anticlimactic.
It feels small, doesn't it? But it changes everything because, as we just discussed, your mind is the projector. If you change the film in the projector, the entire movie on the screen has to change. The miracle happens in the mind. The effects show up in the world.
Okay. The source material then dives into something called the 50 Principles of Miracles. We obviously can't go through all 50, but Lin highlights a few that are just, well, they're mind-bending. The first one he mentions is, there is no order of difficulty in miracles.
This is principle number 1 for a reason. And it is, without a doubt, the hardest one for the human brain to accept.
Absolutely, because my brain immediately screams, curing a terminal illness is definitely harder than finding a good parking spot.
Yeah.
Or, making $5 million is subjectively harder than making $5.
In the physical world, yes. According to the laws of physics and economics we've invented, bigger mass requires more energy to move. Bigger numbers require more work. But remember the core premise of the Course.
The physical world is a dream.
The VR headset. So let me ask you this. If you were sleeping in your bed tonight and you were dreaming, is it harder for your dreaming mind to dream up a dragon than it is to dream up a kitten?
No. It's just mental imagery. It's the same amount of brain power, I guess. None, really.
Exactly. If the world is a projection of the mind, then changing a big problem is no different mechanistically than changing a small problem. It's just a shift in the projection. The only difference is how much fear and belief you have attached to it.
Lin uses that business example here that I think is really helpful. He talks about sales targets.
Yes. He talks about the goal of hitting a sales target of 5 million versus 1 million. He says in the realm of miracles, they are exactly the same level of difficulty.
But to any salesperson listening,
Yeah.
5 million feels like climbing Everest. 1 million feels like climbing a small hill.
And that feeling is the only difference. The only reason one feels harder is because you believe it is harder. You have more fear attached to the 5 million. You have more resistance in your mind. You're running a belief that says, I'm not worth that much, or that's impossible for someone like me.
So the limit isn't out there in the marketplace. The limit is in my own belief structure.
Precisely. The miracle, the shift in perception that allows that new reality to unfold is the same mechanism whether you're healing a paper cut or healing cancer. You are just releasing the block in your mind that says, this is impossible.
Okay, that's a big one to chew on. This connects really well to the next principle he discusses, which is Miracles are natural expressions of love.
This one is one of my favorites because it completely changes the baseline of how we should expect to live.
He says something like, if miracles aren't happening, something has gone wrong, which is the opposite of how most of us think.
Totally. Most of us live with the assumption that life is a struggle, and if something good happens, it's a lucky break. A miracle is a rare, shocking exception to the rule.
Right. Murphy's Law. If it can go wrong, it will. That's the default setting.
The Course says the opposite. It says the natural state of the universe, when you are aligned with Source, with love as flow, it's grace. He compares it to that flow state in business or sports.
Oh yeah, I know that feeling. Those days where everything just clicks.
Exactly. You make the calls, people say yes, all the traffic lights are green on your way to the meeting, you find the money you need for a project. It just works.
The best days.
Yeah.
But they feel so rare.
And the Course argues that shouldn't be a lucky accident. That should be the default. That is the natural state. When we are in struggle mode, grinding, forcing, anxious, that is actually the unnatural state. That is the interference pattern we are creating with our own fear and resistance.
That is such a flip. We're taught that life is suffering and you have to work hard and struggle for every single inch. And he's saying, no, struggle is the deviation. Flow is the default.
And when you remove the blocks, the fear, the guilt, the grievance against your neighbor, the flow creates what we call miracles. And he says they should be involuntary. You don't have to muscle a miracle into existence. You don't have to strain for it. You just have to clear the pipe and let the water flow.
I like that.
Yeah.
Clear the pipe. There's another principle that I found really trippy. Miracles collapse time.
This is a deep one for sure.
He talks about saving time. Instead of spending years learning through suffering, which sounds like my entire 20s, by the way, you could just skip the line.
In many spiritual traditions, there's this idea of karma or reincarnation, right? That you have to learn lessons slowly, painfully, over many lifetimes. You did something bad in a past life, so now you have to suffer for 20 years to burn off that karmic debt.
Paying your dues.
The Course says, no, that's the slow, painful way. A miracle can substitute for thousands of years of learning.
Yeah, how does that work?
Because time itself is just a learning device. We only need time because we haven't learned the lesson of love yet. If you get the aha moment right now, if you truly deeply shift your perception from fear to love in this very instant, you don't need the suffering anymore. You've learned the lesson. You can skip the rest of the class.
Lynn shares a really personal story here about his time in architecture school. Can we talk about that? Because I think it illustrates this time collapse concept really well.
It does. It's a great example. He talks about how much he struggled in architecture school, failing classes, feeling like he just wasn't good enough. He spent years in that nightmare, just feeling totally inadequate.
I think we all have that one period in our lives we look back on with a shudder. Like, ugh, the dark ages.
For sure. But later on, in his business career, he had a realization. He was looking back and he realized that all the pressure of architecture school, even the failures, that was actually what forged the discipline and the visual thinking and the resilience that he needed to succeed in his business later on.
Okay, so silver linings. We've heard that before. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
But it goes deeper than just a silver lining. He says that by shifting his perception of it now, by seeing that past experience with love and gratitude instead of with regret and shame, he actually heals the past.
He changes the past. You can't change the past.
He changes the effect of the past on the present. The past stops being a source of pain and becomes a source of fuel. In that instant of forgiveness towards his younger self, he collapses the time between the failure then and the success now. They become one continuous, purposeful arc of growth. He doesn't have to carry that bag of rocks anymore.
He just drops the bag.
And he saves himself years of future therapy or regret or repeating the same pattern. That is time collapsing. A miracle allows you to jump over the timeline of suffering by learning the lesson right now.
That leads us right into the mechanics of how our mind is actually doing this, creating the baggage or dropping it. We need to talk about projection and perception. This seems to be the engine room of the whole philosophy.
It absolutely is. The core maxim of the entire course is basically projection makes perception.
Meaning, what I see out there in the world is actually just a picture of what's in here, in my mind.
Yes. We tend to think we are like cameras, just objectively recording an external world. I see a rude person, so I record a rude person in my memory. The Course says no, we are like movie projectors.
Okay. We have a film reel running in our minds, and for most of us, it's a horror movie about not being good enough or about people being dangerous and the world being scarce. And we project that movie onto the blank screen of the world.
I love that movie theater analogy. So if I'm sitting in a theater and I hate the movie, say there's a giant scary monster on the screen, what do most of us do in life?
Most of us run up to the screen and start scrubbing it. Or we yell at the monster. We try to fight the image on the screen. We yell at the rude person. We try to change the external circumstance by force.
And we just look like lunatics scrubbing at a white sheet.
Right. And it never, ever works because the monster isn't on the screen. It's in the projection booth. You have to go back to the booth, which is your own mind, and change the film.
Let's apply this to the sales context again. If I'm a new skin distributor and I'm worried about my monthly quota, you are running a film in your head called scarcity and rejection. You project that fear onto your potential customers. You'll see them as stingy or difficult, or you'll see them as judging you. You'll interpret their natural hesitation as a final no.
And because I treat them that way, because I'm tense and pushy and desperate, they actually become that way with me.
Exactly. The world confirms your fear loop. You have created the very reality you are afraid of.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy on steroids.
It is. You get to prove yourself right, but you make yourself miserable in the process.
And this is where the source brings in the concept of idols. This is really interesting to me because usually when I hear idols, I think of golden calves in the Bible. But Lynn warns against making idols out of things like money or relationships or even your upline leader in the business.
An idol in this context is anything external that you have decided is the source of your safety, your happiness, or your worth.
So if I think once I get that promotion, then I'll finally be safe and respected, the promotion is my idol.
Exactly. Or if I can just find the perfect partner, then my life will be complete. The partner is the idol.
Or in the MLM world, if my mentor helps me, I'll succeed. If they quit, my business is dead.
Right. And the fundamental problem with all idols is that they are external and therefore fragile. You can lose the job, the partner can leave, the mentor can quit. If your peace depends on an idol, you are guaranteed to live in a state of anxiety because deep down you know it can be taken away at any moment. You've built your house on sand.
Lynn uses a pretty extreme and kind of wild example to show how powerful our belief in these idols can be. He brings up a news story about a cult leader.
Yes, the story of Songkili. This was a massive scandal in Taiwan some years back.
Right, this is the guy who claimed to have avatars or duplicate bodies that could be in multiple places at once, and he had something like 78 wives.
A huge, huge following, and eventually it was all exposed. People came forward and said, this guy is a fraud, there were legal issues, the photos were shown to be faked, the whole thing.
But, and this is the crazy part, many of the followers still believed in him, even after the proof came out.
And Lynn asks the crucial question, why? Why, even after the fraud is exposed, do the followers still come forward and say, no, he healed me, I saw the miracle with my own eyes?
Yeah, were they just lying? Were they brainwashed and couldn't admit they were wrong?
And this is where it gets really fascinating. From a psychological perspective, the Course would suggest they probably weren't lying about their experience of being healed.
Wait, what? If the guy is a fake, a con artist, how could they actually get healed?
Because within their internal projection, that leader represented salvation. Their belief was so powerful, their projection of healing power onto him was so absolute, that their own minds unlocked their own healing capability.
So they healed themselves, but they used him as the permission slip, as the trigger.
That's it exactly. The power was always in them. But they didn't believe in their own power. They believed the power was in the idol. So when the idol touched them or said a prayer, they finally allowed themselves to be healed. The healing was real, but the source they attributed it to was an illusion.
That is both terrifying and fascinating.
It proves the mechanism of the mind. Projection makes perception. If you are absolutely determined to see a savior, you will experience miracles, even if the savior is a con artist.
So the lesson here is definitely not go join a cult.
No. God, no. The lesson is stop outsourcing your power. Realize that you are giving all the credit to the idol, whether it's a person or a pile of money or a job title. The Course wants you to realize. The source is in you. You have the direct connection. You don't need the guy in the ropes.
Which brings it right back to the Nu Skin team dynamics he talks about.
Yeah.
If you make your upline leader into a god, you're just setting yourself up for a massive crash.
Correct, because if they disappoint you, and they will because they are human, your entire world collapses. But if you see them as a partner and you know your own source is internal, you can handle their mistakes with grace and it doesn't destabilize you.
Okay, so if we want to stop projecting fear and chasing after idols, we need tools. We can't just wish it away. The source gives us a kind of toolbox. The first tool is prayer, but definitely not the prayer I learned in Sunday school.
Now, Lynn is very, very critical of the begging style of prayer. Dear God, please, please let me get this raise. I'll be so good. I promise I'll go to church every week.
He calls that praying to a conditional God.
Right. An angry old man in the sky who needs to be appeased, who keeps a ledger of your good and bad deeds. He asks a very logical question. If God is unconditional love, why does he need your sacrifice? Why do you have to bargain with him?
That's a really good point. If you have to bargain, it's a transaction. It's business. It's not love.
So, true prayer, according to Asham, is not about asking for external things to change. It is a tuning in process. It's setting your intention to align your mind with the source.
So what does that sound like in practice?
Well, instead of, God, please give me $1 million, it's more like, my mind is completely focused on scarcity right now. I feel like I'm blocking the flow of abundance. Help me to see the situation differently. Help me to remember the truth of who I am.
So it's asking for a change of mind, not a change of circumstances.
Exactly. Because the core belief is that once the mind changes, the circumstances have to follow. And he says something that really, really hit me. Every thought is a prayer.
That is one of the most practical and frankly terrifying takeaways for me. Every thought is a prayer.
It is terrifying if you think about it. If you sit around worrying all day, I'm going to go broke, I'm going to get sick, my wife is going to leave me, you are, in effect, praying for disaster. You are focusing your immense creative intention on a negative outcome.
You are actively manifesting the nightmare.
You are. So the discipline becomes catching those thoughts.
Yeah.
And saying, wait a minute, I don't actually want to pray for that. And then consciously choosing to switch the channel.
Okay, so the second tool is forgiveness. And again, a huge redefinition here. Usually forgiveness feels like, okay, you punched me in the face, it hurt, you're a jerk, but I'm going to be the bigger person, the martyr, and I'm going to let it slide.
That's the traditional view.
Yeah,
And
right.
notice how it makes the sin very real. It says, you really did hurt me, and I am really a victim, but I will be noble and overlook your transgression. The Course actually calls this false forgiveness.
My faults.
Because it actually builds resentment. You still feel like a victim deep down, and you hold this little medal of, I forgave you over the other person's head. It reinforces the reality of the attack.
So what is true forgiveness then?
True forgiveness is realizing nothing real happened.
Whoa, hold on. If someone steals my biggest client or cheats on me, that definitely happened. I have the receipts. I have the angry text messages.
In the nightmare, in the VR game, yes, the pixels on the screen showed that event happening. But remember, the whole goal is to wake up. True forgiveness is the practice of saying, this person is acting out of their own fear and their own insanity. They are trapped in their own personal nightmare. I refuse to let their nightmare become my reality.
So it's overlooking the error, seeing past it.
Yes. It's seeing past the behavior to the truth of the person, which is that they are, like you, a part of God who has forgotten who they are. Lynn talks about this with team members. If a business partner attacks you verbally or quits in a rage, they're throwing a tantrum inside the dream. If you react with anger and attack back, you make it real. You've just jumped into the mud with them.
You enter their nightmare. You put on their VR headset.
Exactly. But if you can look at them and think, this is just fear talking, this isn't who they really are, and you manage to stay in your own state of peace, that is forgiveness. You aren't letting them off the hook. You are refusing to swallow the hook yourself.
I really like that. Refusing to swallow the hook.
Yeah.
It's a protective mechanism for your own sanity.
It preserves your peace. And a mind at peace can solve any problem. A mind in anger just creates more problems.
The third tool, and this is the one that might really stretch some listeners, is healing, specifically physical healing.
Yeah, this is where the metaphysics meets biology in a very direct way. The source states it bluntly. A mind without guilt cannot suffer. It suggests that sickness is often a physical manifestation of the mind's belief in separation and guilt.
And to illustrate this, he brings up the incredible story of Anita Moorjani. She wrote the book, Dying to Be Me.
It's a very famous case in these circles, and for good reason. She had end-stage lymphoma. Her doctors had sent her home to die. Tumors the size of lemons all over her body. Her organs were shutting down. She went into a coma and had a near-death experience.
And in that experience, on the other side, she realized something.
She realized she was pure, unconditional love. She realized her true nature. And she saw how she had been living her entire life in fear of cancer, fear of disappointing people, fear of not being good enough. And in that NDE, all that fear just evaporated. She woke up from the coma, and within weeks, the doctors couldn't find a single trace of cancer in her body.
Just dissolved. Gone.
The medical explanation was, Well, there wasn't one. Baffled. But the spiritual explanation from the Course's perspective is the physical body was simply reflecting the state of her consciousness. When her consciousness shifted from fear and death to love and life, the body had to reflect that new reality. The cancer, which was a symbol of fear, had no place to exist in a mind filled only with love.
Now, we have to be very, very careful here. We are not saying that if you're sick, it's your fault, right? We're not saying, oh, you have the flu, you must be a sinner who hates themselves.
Absolutely not. That would be weaponizing the Course. That would be a terrible, cruel interpretation that just creates more guilt, and guilt is what creates sickness in the first place. It's a trap. The point is never to blame the victim. The point is to empower the mind.
It's an invitation, not an accusation.
Precisely. It's an invitation to explore the profound connection between your stress, your thoughts, your guilt, and your physical health. It's about realizing that your mind has far more influence over your body than we've been led to believe.
So we've got the tools: prayer, forgiveness, healing. What is the end game here? Lynn talks about true vision, that Zhengzi Jian, leading to a totally different way of doing business.
The end game is a total shift in how we relate to every single person in our lives. It's moving from a zero-sum mindset to a win-win, or more accurately, a unity mindset.
You know, in the business world, we hear win-win all the time. But usually just means I get some money, you get some money, and we both walk away happy enough.
This is much deeper. The separation mindset, the ego, says, if you win, I lose. There is only so much pie. If you get the customer, that means I don't get the customer.
Which creates cutthroat competition, secrecy, and stress.
The unity mindset, the spirit, says, if you win, I win because we are the same.
We're the same. Okay, that's the woo-woo part creeping back in again. How does that work practically?
Well, apply it to a team. Lynn uses the Nu Skin structure upline, downline. If you genuinely view your downline success as your own, not just because you get a cut financially, but because you see them as an extension of yourself, how do you treat them?
You support them, you mentor them, you celebrate them.
You don't exploit them. You don't pressure them to buy inventory they can't sell just so you can hit your numbers for the month. You serve them because serving them is serving yourself.
Because hurting them would literally be hurting yourself.
Exactly. And ironically, that approach creates massive sustainable success. It builds a culture of trust and loyalty. People want to work with you because they feel safe and valued.
So being spiritual in this way is actually a huge competitive advantage.
It creates natural success. It's that flow state again, but applied to a group of people instead of just an individual.
Now, we can't talk about ECM without addressing the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
Or rather, the central figure of the whole thing, Jesus.
Yes. We have to talk about JC.
The book claims to be channeled directly from Jesus. And Lynn talks about Jesus and the Holy Spirit, but he defines them in a way that's, well, it's pretty unexpected. It's not the stained glass window version.
He completely demythologizes them and makes them psychological functions. In this context, the Holy Spirit isn't a ghost or a dove. It's the voice for God. It is the remaining link in your mind that still connects you to the source.
So it's like a built-in radio frequency that's always broadcasting.
That's a good way to put it. It's your intuition. It's that quiet, calm, sane voice that exists even in the middle of a panic attack. It's the part of your mind that hasn't gone completely insane along with the ego. Everyone has access to it. In ASIM, Jesus is viewed as an elder brother. Not the only son of God in a way that excludes us, but the first one to fully wake up from the dream of separation. He successfully navigated the nightmare, realized it wasn't real, and is now standing just outside the dream, helping the rest of us to wake up.
So he's like the guy who beat the video game on the hardest difficulty, wrote the walkthrough guide, and is now on the headset with us, telling us how to get past the boss level.
That is a surprisingly accurate and useful analogy. He represents the potential of what we all are. He isn't asking for worship. He's offering guidance. He's saying, look, I did it. It's possible. You can do it too. Here's the map.
And this leads to the ultimate concept of atonement, which, when you break the word down, is at-one-ment.
Yes. The atonement is the plan for correction. And the ultimate goal is the final realization that we never truly left the source. We are still at home, safe in the mind of God, just dreaming of exile. We just need to wake up and realize it.
That brings up a really thorny theological problem that Lynn tackles head-on. And honestly, this was part of the source material where I really leaned in. He calls it the nice analogy.
The problem of evil, the classic question.
Exactly. This is the deal breaker for so many people with traditional religion. If God is all good and all powerful, why is there evil? Why are there wars? Why do innocent children get sick and die?
The traditional religious answer is usually some version of free will. God lets you choose, and sometimes humans choose bad things.
But honestly, that has always felt like a cop-out to me. It almost feels cruel. Oh, sorry about all the unimaginable misery, but hey, you chose it.
Lynn agrees. He points out the fundamental flaw in that logic. He asks, if you are a loving parent and you have a baby in a crib, would you put a loaded gun or a sharp knife in the crib with the baby?
No, of course not. That's insane.
And if you did put the knife there and you said, well, I respect his free will to choose whether or not to stab himself, and then the baby got hurt, who is to blame?
The parent. You'd go to jail for criminal negligence.
Exactly. So if traditional religion says God created Satan, the knife, and put him in the Garden of Eden with us, the babies, and then blamed us for listening to him, that's not a loving God. That's a negligent or even cruel God. That God is a monster.
That hits hard. So how does ASEEM solve this? Because the evil, the knife, it certainly seems to be here.
It solves it with one simple, radical idea. God didn't create the knife.
But if God created everything...
God created everything real. God created love and extensions of love. We, in our tiny, mad idea, dreamt up the knife. We dreamt up the separation. We dreamt up the devil or the ego as a symbol for that choice.
So the knife is a hologram, a projection.
Yes, it has no real power because it has no real source. It only exists because we are currently looking at it and believing in it. The moment we stop looking at it, the moment we choose to wake up, it vanishes because it was never there in the first place.
So God isn't allowing evil. God is waiting for us to stop hallucinating evil.
Precisely. That is why nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. The evil isn't real. It's part of the nightmare we made up to make our separation seem real and consequential. God didn't abandon us. We just closed our eyes and pretended we were lost.
Wow. That actually makes sense. It fixes the loophole that never sat right with me.
It does. It places the responsibility on us to wake up, but it removes the terrifying fear that we are fighting a real, ultimate, powerful evil. We're just fighting our own shadows.
So as we start to wrap up this deep dive, where does this leave us? We've covered the split mind, the projection, the idols, the solution. But we're still here. I still have to drive home in traffic. I still have bills to pay. We can't just poof into a ball of light immediately.
No, the Course recognizes that. It talks about a transitionary phase. We move from a nightmare of fear and lack to what it calls a happy dream.
A happy dream. I like the sound of that. What is it?
It's a state where you are still in the world. You still have a body, a job, a family, but you interpret everything differently. You see peace where you used to see conflict. You offer forgiveness where you used to offer judgment. You see opportunities for love instead of reasons for attack.
Lynn mentioned something really beautiful about time. He says that time exists only to teach us how not to need time anymore.
Which is a beautiful paradox, isn't it? We use this illusion of time as a classroom to learn that we are actually eternal.
So for the listener who has stuck with us and wants to take this off the podcast and into their life, what's the first move? We need a practical step-by-step application, because this has been very heady stuff.
The source material basically invites us to conduct a mini experiment in our own lives. It's a simple 3-step process you can do anywhere, anytime.
Okay, lay it on me. Step 1.
Step 1 is the catch. The very next time you feel a negative emotion annoyance at the person driving slowly in front of you, fear when you see an email from your boss, anger at your spouse, just pause. Don't react. Just catch yourself and say, okay, I am projecting a nightmare right now. This feeling is coming from me.
Acknowledge that the feeling is originating in my mind, not from the external event.
Exactly. Step 2 is the ask. You ask a simple question. You can ask the Holy Spirit or your higher self or just the universe. It doesn't matter. You silently ask, how can I see this with love instead? Or show me a different way to look at this.
How can I see this with love instead?
It sounds so simple, almost trite. But if you honestly, sincerely ask that question in a moment of anger and you're willing to receive an answer...
Then step 3 is the receive.
Yes. Just wait for a second. The answer will come. Your perception will shift. The anger will soften. You might suddenly realize, oh, that person who cut me off is probably rushing to the hospital, or my boss is being hard because he's terrified of his own boss and is under immense pressure.
You see the fear behind their attack instead of just the attack itself.
And in that tiny shift, the miracle has happened. The tension in your body dissolves. You don't have to fight them or be right. You are free.
It's like treating every annoyance not as a major drama, but as a glitch in the simulation.
That's it exactly. Don't take the glitch so seriously. Just ask for help to correct it with love.
I love that. It's about claiming your inheritance, which the Course says is peace. Not through working harder or being more righteous, but just by changing your mind.
That is the entire essence of A Course in Miracles. It's a journey from fear back to love, one thought at a time.
Well, there you have it. A crash course in rewriting your own reality. It's dense, it's challenging, but if you can apply even just 1% of this to your next traffic jam, I think that's a win.
Absolutely. It's the only win that really matters.
Thanks for diving deep with us today. We'll see you in the next stream.
Or maybe we'll see you when you wake up.
Touche. See you next time.